She ran from a man who promised forever and straight into a king who had survived centuries. Trapped between a shattered wedding and a descending elevator, she didn't know fate had teeth, or that tonight it had chosen her. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now, let us begin. The first thing she noticed was the silence. Not the gentle kind, not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, suffocating quiet that pressed against her ears after a door closed too fast and locked her inside a moment she wasn't ready for. The elevator hummed softly as it began its descent, smooth and merciless, carrying her downward while her entire life felt like it had just split open behind her. She stood frozen near the panel, chest rising too fast, fingers still curled like she was gripping something that had already been ripped away. Her wedding dress, custom-made, ivory silk, fitted perfectly only an hour ago, now felt like borrowed skin. The hem was dirty from her bare feet slapping against polished marble. A thin tear ran along the side where she'd snagged it while turning a corner too sharply. Her reflection stared back at her in the mirrored walls. Light skin flushed pink with panic. Curly hair that had taken 3 stylists and an entire morning to perfect was coming undone, tendrils sticking to her damp cheeks. Mascara streaked beneath her eyes like evidence she couldn't wipe away fast enough. She pressed her palm flat against her chest, trying to slow her heart. Breathe. Just breathe. That was when she felt it. Not a sound, not movement, a presence. Her breath caught. Slowly, hesitantly, she lifted her gaze. And that was when she saw him. He stood at the far end of the elevator, unmoving, as if he'd been there long before she ever ran inside. Tall, broad-shouldered, his posture was relaxed, almost regal, hands folded loosely behind his back as though the world had never rushed him a day in his life. He was dressed in red and black, not the cheap costume kind, not dramatic for attention. This was fabric chosen with intention, deep crimson layered beneath sharp black tailoring, every line precise, every fold expensive. The colors clung to him like a signature, like a crown invisible to everyone but those who knew how to see. His hair was long, silver white, pulled back into a sleek ponytail that fell straight down his back, not a strand out of place. It emphasized the sharp planes of his face. High cheekbones, a clean jawline, lips set in calm neutrality. He looked young, too young, but his eyes, her stomach dropped. They were pale, clear, ancient in a way that made her feel suddenly exposed, like he could see not just her tear-streaked face, but the moment she'd broken inside that ballroom. Like he could hear the echo of the words her fiancé had whispered in her ear minutes before she ran. "You belong to me," he'd said softly, smiling for the guests. "Don't ever forget that." Her fingers curled into fists at the memory. The man in the elevator tilted his head slightly, as if listening to something far beyond the hum of cables and gears. Her heartbeat. His gaze met hers. The air shifted. It wasn't dramatic. There was no thunder, no sudden jolt, just an unmistakable change, as though the elevator had dipped into deeper water, pressure settling around them both. She swallowed. Her voice cracked. She tried again. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize." "You don't need to apologize." His voice was smooth, low, controlled. It wrapped around the small space without effort, steady enough to make her realize how uneven her own breathing had become. He didn't move closer, didn't reach for the emergency button. He simply watched her with an expression that was unreadable, calm, observant, almost curious. The elevator passed the 42nd floor. She glanced at the numbers lighting up, grounding herself in something normal. A hotel, a city, Los Angeles, California. Glass towers, traffic, a world that made sense. Except for him. "I'll be out of your way soon," she said quickly, wiping at her face with the back of her hand. "I just needed to escape." The word landed softly, but it hit something deep inside her. She looked at him again. He hadn't smiled, hadn't smirked. He stated it like fact. "Yes," she whispered before she could stop herself. Something flickered in his eyes then, brief, sharp, gone in a blink. The elevator continued its smooth descent. She shifted her weight, suddenly hyper-aware of the distance between them. He didn't crowd her, but his presence filled the space anyway. It was like standing too close to a fire you couldn't see, warmth and danger wrapped together. "Is it always this quiet?" she asked, more to break the tension than because she cared about the answer. "Only when something important is happening," he replied. That made her laugh weakly. "Then this must be very important." He studied her for a moment longer. "Yes," he said. "It is." Her pulse skipped. She didn't know why she asked the next question. Maybe it was the way he spoke. Maybe it was the way he didn't look away like most people did when confronted with visible grief. "Do you ever regret the choices you make?" she asked softly. The elevator slowed slightly as it passed the 30th floor. "Regret," he repeated, tasting the word, "is a luxury reserved for those who believe they had other options." She frowned. "Everyone has other options." "Do they?" Their eyes locked again. In that moment, she felt something slide into place, an awareness she couldn't name, like the edge of a truth brushing past her skin. "What's your name?" she asked. He hesitated, just a fraction of a second. "Lucien," he said at last. The name settled into her bones. She stopped herself. The name she almost gave him felt tied to a life she was no longer sure she wanted. "I'm supposed to be getting married today." "Supposed to?" Lucien echoed. She let out a shaky breath. "I ran." "Yes," he said again. "I noticed." Despite everything, a small smile tugged at her lips. The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors slid open. Noise rushed in. Laughter, footsteps, the clink of glasses, the ordinary chaos of people unaware that something extraordinary was standing right in front of them. Lucien stepped forward. Before she could follow, he paused and turned back to her. "You are not wrong for choosing yourself," he said quietly. "Whatever waits beyond those doors is better than a cage dressed as devotion." Her throat tightened. "Thank you," she whispered. He inclined his head, a gesture that felt old, deliberate. As he stepped out into the lobby, she noticed something strange. No reflection. The mirrored doors behind him showed the room perfectly. But not him. Her breath caught sharply. By the time she looked again, he was gone, lost in the crowd, red and black swallowed by the world. And somewhere deep beneath the city, the Vampire King smiled. The city didn't sleep that night. Los Angeles pulsed the way it always did. Headlights slicing through darkness, music spilling from rooftop bars, the ocean breathing steadily in the distance. But for her, everything felt muted, like she was moving through a version of the world wrapped in glass. She sat on the edge of the hotel bed she hadn't planned to occupy alone, still in her torn wedding dress, feet aching, mind racing too fast to rest. The suite was enormous, paid for months in advance, decorated with rose petals that now felt like a cruel joke. Somewhere downstairs, the reception continued without her. Somewhere, her almost husband was probably spinning a story sharp enough to cut her name out of it. She should have felt panic. Instead, she felt awake. Her phone buzzed again on the nightstand. She didn't need to look to know who it was. She turned it face down hours ago, silencing the calls, the messages, the inevitable shift from concern to anger. "You embarrassed me. Come back now. You're mine." Her jaw tightened. She stood, crossed the room, and pulled the curtains back. The city glittered below, beautiful, dangerous, alive. She pressed her forehead to the glass. "Lucien." The name surfaced uninvited, sending a shiver through her spine. The elevator, the silence. The way he'd looked at her like he already knew the ending of a story she was still trapped inside. The way the mirrors hadn't reflected him. She exhaled slowly. "That's impossible," she whispered to the empty room. And yet, she turned back toward the bed and froze. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. The air shifted, pressure building the way it had in the elevator, subtle but unmistakable. Her heart kicked hard against her ribs as every instinct she possessed screamed at her to move, to run, to do something. Before she could react, a shadow detached itself from the far corner of the room. Lucien stepped into the light. He stood near the window now, exactly as composed as he had been before, dressed once again in red and black, long silver-white hair tied neatly at the nape of his neck. He looked untouched by time, by chaos, by the normal rules of entering locked hotel rooms 30 floors above the ground. She stumbled back a step. "How did you?" "You invited me," he said calmly. "I absolutely did not." "You thought of me," he corrected. very clearly. Her pulse roared in her ears. That doesn't explain how you're here. No, he agreed. It doesn't. She stared at him, fear and fascination warring inside her. You're not human. The statement came out flat, more realization than question. Lucien's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened, like a door unlocking. No, he said quietly. I am not. The room felt suddenly smaller. She wrapped her arms around herself, wedding dress rustling. Then what are you? He took a step closer, not threatening, not rushed, but enough that she felt the warmth of him, felt the gravity of his presence pull at her senses. I'm the king of those you've been taught not to believe in, he said. The ones hidden beneath your cities, beneath your laws, beneath your light. Her breath hitched. A vampire. Yes. The word should have terrified her. Instead, it made too much sense. The eyes, the stillness, the way he'd seemed older than the building itself. Why me? She whispered. Lucien studied her face as if committing it to memory. Because you ran. She let out a shaky laugh. A lot of people run. Not from gilded prisons, he replied. Not at the exact moment the bloodlines shifted. Her stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means, he said gently, that your life was about to be decided without your consent. And my world noticed. She shook her head. This is insane. Yes, Lucien agreed easily. It is. Silence stretched between them. Finally, she squared her shoulders. If you're really a king, then you should know my name. He waited. I'm Alina, she said. Alina Moore. The name echoed softly in the room. A beautiful name, Lucien said. It suits you. She flushed despite herself. You broke into my room. I protected you. From what? She demanded. There was a pause. Lucien turned his gaze toward the door. From a man who is currently arguing with hotel security about which floor you're on. Her blood ran cold. As if summoned by his words, there was a sharp knock. Alina, a familiar voice, tight with anger masked as concern. Open the door. Now. Her chest constricted. Lucien looked back at her. He does not love you. I know, she whispered. He does not see you as human. I know. He will not stop. That made her look up sharply. What do you mean? Lucien's jaw tightened. Men like him do not lose gracefully. The knocking grew louder. Alina, don't make this worse. She trembled. Lucien held out his hand. Not commanding, not demanding. Offering. Come with me, he said. Where? Somewhere he can never touch you again. Her eyes flicked to the door. To the phone buzzing on the bed. To the dress that symbolized a future she had almost stepped into blindly. Then back to Lucien. If I do this, she said, voice barely steady, my life changes forever. Yes. She swallowed. There's no going back. No. The knocking turned into pounding. In that moment, right there, she thought of every choice she'd ever made to keep the peace, to stay quiet, to accept less so others could feel more comfortable. She reached for Lucien's hand. The instant their skin touched, heat flared, sharp, electric, undeniable. Her breath caught as something ancient and powerful surged through her veins. Not pain, but recognition. Like a lock clicking open inside her chest. Lucien's eyes darkened. Alina, he said softly. Once we leave, you belong to yourself. She nodded. Take me, she said. The world folded. Not spinning, not breaking, folding like pages closing around them. The hotel room vanished, replaced by darkness threaded with red light. Her ears popped, her stomach lurched, and then, stone. She gasped as her feet touched cool marble. The air was different here, thicker, charged alive with whispers. Towering columns rose into shadows above, etched with symbols she didn't recognize. Soft crimson light glowed from veins in the walls, pulsing like a heartbeat. She turned slowly in a full circle. Where are we? She breathed. My city, Lucien said. She looked at him. No, she looked at all of him. The red and black he wore now looked less like clothing and more like armor. Power rolled off him unrestrained, no longer muted for the human world. He stood taller here, presence magnified, gaze burning with authority. This is beneath Los Angeles, he continued, a kingdom older than the state itself. Her heart pounded with awe and fear. Other figures emerged from the shadows. Vampires, she realized. All eyes turned toward Lucien. Toward her. They bowed. To him. And then to her. She stiffened. Why are they bowing to me? Lucien's voice dropped, intimate despite the watching court. Because, he said, the blood has recognized you. Her breath shook. What blood? Lucien met her gaze, something like wonder flickering across his usually controlled expression, the kind that changes history. Somewhere in the vast chamber, a low murmur spread. And in the middle of her new, impossible world, Alina realized something terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Running from her wedding hadn't saved her life. It had awakened it. Midway through all this chaos and choice, a question lingered unspoken in the air, one she hadn't dared ask herself until now. If you were standing where she stood, with fear on one side and freedom on the other, which would you choose? Sometimes, the answers we leave unspoken say the most. Lucien stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Welcome to the beginning, he said, not the end. And for the first time since she'd run, Alina smiled. Not because she was safe, but because she was finally free. The first night in Lucien's city passed without sleep. Not because of fear, though there was plenty of that, but because everything inside Alina felt too awake, too alert, as if the world had quietly widened and her body was still learning how to exist inside it. She stood on a balcony carved from black stone and glass, overlooking a subterranean skyline that defied reason. Towers rose like obsidian spires, threaded with red light and silver veins, bridges arching between them like ribs. Water flowed far below, glowing faintly, reflecting a sky that wasn't a sky at all, but a vast ceiling etched with ancient symbols that shimmered as if alive. This is impossible, she murmured. Most truths are, Lucien replied. He stood beside her now, hands resting lightly on the stone railing, red and black fabric moving subtly, as if responding to an unseen current. Here, he no longer hid what he was. His presence pressed outward, commanding and calm. And yet, when he looked at her, there was restraint. Care, you said the blood recognized me, she said, turning to face him. You still haven't told me what that means. Lucien exhaled slowly. Because once I do, there is no returning to ignorance. I already can't go back, she said. Not to him. Not to that life. No, he agreed. You cannot. Silence, stretched, filled only by the distant hum of the city. Long before this country had a name, Lucien began. Before borders and states and laws you recognize, there were agreements between worlds. Humans, vampires, others. Most have been forgotten. Some were broken. Alina leaned against the railing, listening. There is a bloodline, he continued, rare even among humans. Carriers are born without knowing what they are. They live ordinary lives until a moment of fracture, betrayal, violence, awakening choice. When that moment comes, their blood responds. Her fingers curled slightly. Responds how? It calls, he said, and my kind hears it. She swallowed. You heard mine? Yes. Below them, a group of vampires crossed a bridge, moving with purpose, glancing up respectfully as they passed beneath Lucien's gaze. You're saying I'm what? Special. Lucien turned her fully now. I am saying you are sovereign. The word struck her harder than any insult or praise she'd ever received. Sovereign, she repeated faintly. Unbound, he said. Unclaimable. Your blood cannot be compelled. Not by humans. Not by vampires. Not even by me. Her chest tightened. Then why did they bow? Because your presence shifts power, Lucien answered. Because your bloodline once stood beside kings. Because you are not meant to kneel. Alina laughed softly, disbelief threading through it. I spent years kneeling, apologizing, making myself smaller so a man wouldn't get angry. Lucien's jaw tightened, a flicker of something dark passing through his eyes. He touched you without consent, he said quietly. Controlled you. Marked you. She stiffened. How do you? The blood remembers, he said. Even what you tried to forget. Anger flared, sharp and unexpected. And what are you going to do about it, Your Majesty? The title came out edged, defensive. Lucien did not rise to it. He studied her instead, then stepped closer, slowly, deliberately, giving her every chance to pull away. I will not act unless you ask me to, he said. That is the law I live by, the one that matters. Her throat tightened. For the first time in her life, power was being placed in her hands, not taken, not negotiated, not wrapped in conditions. "What if I ask you to help me?" she whispered. "I will," he said instantly. "What if I ask you to protect me?" "I already am." "What if I ask you to make him pay?" Lucien's eyes darkened, red light flickering briefly within them. "Then I will," he said, voice calm as still water. "But you must decide what justice looks like. Not vengeance born of fear, justice born of truth." She turned away, staring out over the city again. Images flashed through her mind, smiles that hid threats, hands that tightened just a little too much, words designed to cage instead of care. A wedding plan to seal ownership, not partnership. "I don't want him dead," she said at last. "I want him exposed. Powerless. I want him to know he can't own anyone ever again." Lucien smiled. "Then you're already thinking like a ruler," he said. The reckoning came 3 nights later. They returned to the surface not with secrecy, but with precision. The city above had continued without her. News outlets spun the runaway bride's story into gossip. Social media dissected her disappearance, speculated wildly. Her almost husband had given interviews filled with practiced sorrow and wounded pride. Lucien watched it all from a private penthouse overlooking downtown Los Angeles, expression unreadable. "He's convincing," Alina said, arms folded. "He is desperate," Lucien replied. "That makes men careless." The trap was simple. A charity gala, cameras, donors, the kind of environment where reputation mattered more than truth, until truth arrived uninvited. Alina entered on Lucien's arm. The room fell silent. She no longer wore white. She wore black silk, tailored and fluid, confidence woven into every step. Her hair framed her face naturally, no longer sculpted for approval. She felt different, grounded, steady, unafraid. Lucien, beside her, was unmistakable. Red and black, silver hair bound back, gaze sharp enough to still the air. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Her former fiancé froze mid-conversation, color draining from his face. "Alina," he said later, voice tight as he approached them. "There you are." Lucien did not speak. He did not need to. "I see you found company," the man continued, eyes flicking to Lucien with poorly concealed hostility. "We need to talk." "No," Alina said calmly. "We don't." His smile faltered. "You embarrass me." She met his gaze without flinching. "You try to cage me." Murmurs grew louder. "This isn't the place," he hissed. "It's exactly the place," she replied. Lucien lifted one hand, not threatening, not dramatic. Screens around the room flickered to life. Audio played. Recordings. Messages. His voice, stripped of charm, laying bare control, threats, manipulation. Contracts surfaced, documents outlining financial coercion, clauses designed to trap. Gasps echoed. Her former fiancé staggered back. "This is a setup." "No," Alina said softly. "It's the truth." Security moved in. Sponsors stepped away. In minutes, the man who had once thought himself untouchable stood exposed, powerless, unraveling under the weight of his own actions. Lucien leaned down, voice too low for anyone else to hear. "Justice," he said. Alina exhaled, something heavy finally leaving her chest. They left before the applause began. Back beneath the city, the court awaited. They did not bow to Lucien first. They bowed to her. She looked at him, startled. "You don't have to accept this," Lucien said quietly. "You may walk away. Live your life above. Free." She considered it. Then she thought of the woman she had been in that elevator, terrified, running, unaware of her own strength. "I don't want to walk away," she said. "I want to stand." A slow, genuine smile spread across Lucien's face. "Then stand beside me," he said. "Not behind, not beneath." He extended his hand. This time, when she took it, there was no shock, only warmth, steady and real. Their bond did not seal with blood or command, but with choice. The city pulsed brighter. Weeks passed. Alina learned the rhythms of the hidden world, the laws that protected both humans and vampires, the weight of decisions that echoed across generations. She was not a queen by title, but by presence, by voice, by the way power shifted when she spoke. And Lucien, ancient, controlled, feared, changed too. He listened more, smiled more, lived more. One evening, back on the same balcony where it had begun, Alina leaned against him, watching the city breathe. You never forced me, she said quietly. I never would, he replied. She turned to face him. Do you regret it? Letting me into your world. Lucian met her gaze, silver eyes warm. No, he said. I think I was waiting. For what? For someone who would remind me why I rule, he said. Not for power, but for protection, for balance. She smiled. Above them, below them, between worlds, the future stretched open. Not perfect, not easy, but chosen. And somewhere far above, an elevator descended, doors opening on ordinary lives, unaware that sometimes, when you run from one fate, you don't escape destiny. You meet it. And this time, she didn't run. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.